Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jason, your host for That Build Show, and I've got two bubble experts on the panel with me today. So say hello to Bob the Builder and Ned the No-Coder. Okay, so first of all, did you guys call each other before you joined the show? You're wearing the exact same. You're wearing the same thing. Well, I didn't mean anything by it. There's only so much budget for the show. You know what? Forget it. Let's just get into the questions. On the phone is Frank, and Frank wants some help with some date calculations. Frank?
Hey there. Yeah, long-time listener, first-time caller. I'm trying to do something where I try to find like what's the beginning day of the week, and I just don't know how to do that. Can you help?
Okay, Bob, why don't you take this one? Bob? So are you refusing to answer the question? All right, Ned, how about you?
No. Next question.
What do you mean? Well, Frank, sorry about that. If you're still dialed in, appears Bob and Ned don't really want to answer that question. So let's move on to the next one. Well, unfortunately, I'm getting the signal. That's all the time we have for today. Hope you really enjoyed this episode and found it insightful. We'll see you next time. Hey, what's up? Jason here. I promise I'll be a little more helpful than Bob and Ned. And I just thought it was funny because I see these videos all over the place. Here's the pro mixing tips that the pros won't tell you, or secrets of blah, 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 which is just dumb. But I thought it was funny. Hopefully it gave you a good laugh. Let's get into this one. So I'm going to talk about some operators that are extremely useful, especially if you're new to Bubble. You might not know some of these exist. So some of these are pretty basic, but they're all very powerful and can save you a bunch of time. So let's get into it. A common case is trying to find out the start of a week or the start of a month. So you might have a drop down, you might have a date value in your database. So if I just pick the 10th of October here, this is already showing me that the start of the week is going to be Sunday. So the start of the week is October 6th at midnight. The start of the month is October 1st, and next month is November 1st at that time. And this one's really, really simple. The operation is just called rounded down to. So if I go here in the editor and I've got my date value here, and these are all just picking different versions of rounded down to. So start of the week is taking the input for that date, and rounded down allows you to basically pick all those different options. So if you're using dates or times, you can round down to any of these values. And more importantly, you can do math operations. So the one down here that decided what next month was, I rounded it down to month, and then I added 1 month. So whatever you're rounding this down to, let's just say I was changing this to hours, and then I can add whatever I want. I can add seconds, minutes, hours, days, years, whatever it is, and then that can help you with any kind of date calculations. So I did a video on how to create that little, how many number of days ago was something created. You can watch that one here as well. And it uses some of this as well to try to tell you things like, this record was added a few minutes ago, this record was added an hour ago, more than 3 days ago, whatever that is. So check that video out here, but let's get into the next one. Okay, defaulting to is a really interesting one. So sometimes you might have a record in your database that is empty. So say for whatever reason you added a field to your database, you set a default value for it, but all of your previous records are not going to have that default value. Now the best thing to do and the right thing to do is to create a bulk workflow action so you can populate all of those legacy records with the new value. But if you don't want to go through that trouble, you can use this defaulting to. So here's how this one works. Now right here I have this statement here, the exact time. Choose a time first. This is the default value that I have set, and it automatically knows because I'm saying just give me the exact time for this input box, but it hasn't been picked yet. So once I pick this and pick the time, it's now going to switch to the exact time. So let's take a look at this one. Another really simple one, so this exact time I'm taking, again, the date input, I'm formatting it as this for the time that I want to display, and then it's just the operator of defaulting to. So that is just an operator on its own, and then you can populate it with text, or if you were using default values in a database, you could just do a do search and you could find that as well, and then you'll never have to worry about a piece of data being missing on your site. This can work for anything, so let's just say you have avatars and you have a default avatar that you want to use. If somebody doesn't upload their picture, you can do the exact same thing here, because I could also choose, say, get an option from a set of options, or however you want to do it, and that's a really good practice, so making sure that data is never just going to be empty on the site. All right, the next one is date ranges. This one's probably, well, I wouldn't really call it advanced once you know how it works, but if you are just using this for the first time, it's kind of annoying. And basically what it is you've got to create a date range first. So you're going to have two dates. That might be from the date being picked from dropdowns. It might be coming from an event management system you're running, and you're getting that stuff out of the database. And then you want to compare that to a different date range. So let's just say you wanted to create a booking app where you wanted people to be able to book meetings or book time with people. So what I'm going to do here first is I've got to create an existing range first. So let me just pick the 14th from noon until 2 p.m. So I'm going to create this, and right now I'm just temporarily storing this in a custom state. So I'm going to create the first range. So it's giving me the start date and time, it's giving me the end date and time, and then it's giving me the center value, which is the value in the middle. So this is an example of an appointment being booked. And now let's say I come to the website and I want to book a meeting room for, let's just say 11:30 up until 12:30. So obviously you could put a better message here, but this is basically saying this date range overlaps this date range. So if I were to go here and pick, say, let's go 2:30 to 3:30, request a booking. No, this is not overlapping. So you could just add a message to show that this meeting room is available at that time. So the operators really quickly for this one. When you pick a date range, you've got some values here. You've got start, which will give you the first date value, end, which will give you the end value. Center is the one in the middle, and then these are all the comparisons and the operators. So if it contains the range, if it contains a date, overlaps with, after the range, or before the range, you get some pretty powerful options, and you could make some pretty cool calendar things with scheduling and booking time. So you could have, say, office hours as an example, set in a date range in the database, and then the user comes in to request a meeting, and then it can check automatically to see if it's available or not available, and then you can adjust the message however you want. Okay, these ones are pretty simple, but you can run into a problem if you're new to Bubble and you don't know how to do this, because if you're creating a user account with Bubble, it's case sensitive. So if you had Bob in uppercase at email.com and Bob lowercase at email.com, it's going to create two different user records. And this is incredibly useful, and just a good practice to do in general is you can use the trimmed, truncated, and lowercase operators to normalize your email addresses. So if I were to say I'm going to register for the site and I wanted it, that's going to be my email address. Now lowercase, it's going to convert everything to lowercase. Lowercase and trimmed, this is just going to trail off any spaces, because I've had situations on my live sites where, let's get rid of that dot there, where people paste their email address or some data into the system, so there's a bunch of trailing spaces after there. So using trimmed is very important, because if I highlight this, you can see that I can't highlight anymore because it's trimming that. Now if I use this one, you can see it has the trailing spaces set there. So this one's really simple, and it is just a matter of using these two values. So I'm taking the input for that email value, switching it to lowercase, and then the second one, I'm converting it to lowercase, and I'm trimming the text. So trimming just gets rid of spaces around the text string, so before and afterwards. Now this is kind of useful if you need to extract data, and you can do this pretty easily. So let's get rid of some of these spaces here. There's a couple of ways that you can extract this. Now, say for example, you had a registration system and you wanted to try to capture the company, for example. So you could create a workflow that maybe goes to AI and says, find me information about this company based on the email domain, pass that back, and then you can create company records if your system does something like that. So I'm doing this on one of my existing sites where if people sign up using the same email domain, it's automatically going to connect them in the back end, and then they can sort of find each other through my membership site. Now, split is one way to do it. Split basically just takes a string of text and splits it by whatever value you've picked. So given I want to find out the email domain, I want to split this using the @ operator. So if they put that in, then it's going to split the text there. You can make sure they do that by setting your input value here to email. And if you set your input to email, it will have to have an @ symbol and a dot, and then you can split and you can find whatever. So the second one down here at the bottom is it's splitting by the @ symbol, then it's splitting by a period. Now this is probably going to break down if you get into things like .co.uk and some of those other ones, but just to show you that this split option can be fairly useful. And there is another even simpler option, which is extract value. So I'm just using input email value, and I'm using this extract function, and I can extract from the email the domain, the top domain, or the alias. So let's just test this a couple of different ways, and let's look at the difference between the top domain and the main domain. So let's test out that co.uk thing. So let's just say I put in biff at company.co.uk. So now it's finding the top domain here, and here it's finding the domain. So now you can actually get both. So this is pretty useful. You can use either of these. So depending on what you want to do with email addresses or other pieces of text being brought into your system, those are pretty powerful things to just grab a little section of it and do whatever you want with it. This one, so I showed the lowercase one already. So there's a couple of other operators here that can be useful because for some reason I've got people who register for my site in all caps and I want to normalize their first and last names. So if I were to capitalize this with this name, lowercase, obviously it's going to convert to lowercase. Uppercase, it's going to convert to that. But capitalized words, it's not going to do that. So in this particular case, you're going to have to use both operators. So if I wanted the capitalized words, the first thing I would have to do, instead of capitalized words, let's make this a different one. I want to convert this to lowercase first, and then I want to capitalize the words. Now it should be perfectly normalized. So there we go, capitalized words is here. And this last one is append. So let's just say you are collecting a user's name to either sign up or you're saving it in a custom state and you want to add some text to it. Instead of having to use two text boxes, you can just use one simple one and you can use the append operator. So I've got the input name, I've got the value, and then I'm just appending this string of text, which obviously you could replace with an option or you could replace with a repeating group. So there's some pretty cool functions and operators in Bubble that can be extremely useful. So again, this is probably pretty basic if you're experienced with Bubble, but if you haven't seen some of these, it can make your lives a lot easier. So remember to hit like and subscribe. Easy for me to say. So remember to hit like and subscribe, and hopefully Bob and Ned will be in a better mood next time. See you soon.